Hey, how's it going, guys? Blue Tempest here, and welcome to my reading log for January 2022. I did read a decent variety of manga this past month, and I've got to say, this is probably one of my favorite reading logs. I read a lot of really great stuff, so yeah, I'm just really excited to get into all of the series that I read. But before we get into it, I do want to ask you guys, what manga did you read this past month? Let me know down in the comments, and if you do end up enjoying this video, then please make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It really does help me out. And also make sure to stick around till the end of the video, where I'll be talking about my manga of the month, which I think is going to be a pretty obvious one for this month based on the title of this video. But without further ado, let's get into my manga reads for January. Starting with Mashle, I did read volumes 1 through 4 of this series, which are all of the physical volumes that are released so far. And I did end up doing a 3-volume rule video on Mashle, so definitely check out that video to know some in-depth thoughts. But just to let you guys know, give you an update since I did read volume 4 as well, this series is honestly still really great. I'm loving it, especially the direction that volume 4 is going in. I think the series is really starting to find its footing, and we're starting to get into some pretty exciting content, so can't wait till volume 5 comes out. All right, so next up, I did read the second volume of Frieren Beyond Journeys. And now this is a series that I talked about in my last reading log, where I did read the first volume, so definitely watch that video so you can know a brief synopsis on what the series is about. But this is a really nice fantasy story that I'm enjoying a lot. I think volume 2 really cemented itself for me as being one of the series that I am going to be looking forward to the most when these new releases do come out. I love the introduction of this character right here. I forgot his name already, but yeah, he's really cool. And I just love the dynamic between these three right here. So yeah, this is a really great series. Has some emotional moments, and it's also kind of slow, but personally I really like the pace of the series. I like the vibe of it. It's just a nice chill read. And yeah, I definitely recommend Frieren if you're looking for a really nice fantasy story. All right, so moving on, this month I did read the first volume of Yuuna and the Haunted Hot Springs. Now, this is a series that has a lot of ecchi, a lot of fan service, so I did pick this one up for the culture, but I actually ended up really enjoying this first volume. While it isn't something that is groundbreaking, and it's not anything that reinvents the wheel or anything like that, like I said, I did really like this first volume. It's basically about this guy who ends up living in a hot springs, and he meets Yuuna right here on the cover, who is actually a spirit, and he's pretty much a psychic, so he can see spirits. And pretty much after that, a bunch of funny antics start playing out in this series. So yes, this is a very comedic series. There are some surprisingly wholesome moments, but there also is a lot of ecchi in this as well. So if that's not your thing, I would not recommend this. But if it is your thing, the art is quite nice, I will say. So yeah, moving on, I did also read Nisekoi. Now this is a much more tame and just much more wholesome rom-com series. I did read volumes 1 and 2 of this series, and I did really enjoy it as well. I just love this type of story, and I'm a sucker for rom-coms, but this one actually feels pretty nice, pretty genuine. It is a high school romance story about our main character, who is actually the son of like a Yakuza boss, and he meets this blonde girl who is the daughter of a mafia boss, and these two gangs are basically at war with each other, and the only way for them to be at peace is if they start dating. So they basically pretend to start dating, and there is kind of like a love triangle going on with this other girl as well. because she really likes the main character really likes her, but then the main character is pretending to date this girl, and then there's this whole other side plot where it's that kind of trope where he knew a girl when he was a kid in his childhood. He doesn't remember anything about her, and he's now trying to look for her, and the only way that he can find her is that he has a pendant that has a lock on it, and the girl supposedly has the key that unlocks the lock. And so there is a little bit of a mystery there as to who is the girl from his past. It sounds kind of cheesy, but honestly, it's really enjoyable. I really like it. There's a lot of funny moments too, and it's not a manga that takes itself too seriously or anything. As of right now, there's not really any like fan service or anything like that, which honestly fits the vibe of this series. This is just a nice, pure romance right now with some drama sprinkled in and obviously a lot of comedy. So highly recommend Nisekoi. This is a good one and I'm really looking forward to reading more. Next up, I did start reading Requiem of the Rose King. Now this is a volume that I borrowed from my girlfriend, and it's a series that I've heard a lot of good things about. A lot of people say that this is similar to Game of Thrones, and I am a big fan of Game of Thrones, so I gave this series a shot and I really enjoyed it. I think I would definitely have to read some more of this to get a better feel for it, but there's just a lot of political drama going on, and it follows our main character Richard, who has some personal issues that they're dealing with that I won't spoil for you guys because it is a pretty important plot point in this first volume. But yeah, this is actually a shoujo manga. The art is really great. I haven't really read any shoujo, and I know that this is really different from like the typical shoujo manga. Don't know if there's gonna be any romance in this, but I'm guessing that there will be. But for now, it's just a lot of political and kind of medieval drama, which like I said, is similar to Game of Thrones, and I enjoyed it for the most part. So hopefully I can read some more of this to get a better feel for the series. Let me know down in the comments if you guys have read Requiem of the Rose King and if I should keep going with it. This one also did recently get an anime. So next up, I did continue reading Inside Mari, as now volume 8 is out, and this series just continues to be amazing. Another great series from Shuzo Oshimi, and this is definitely one that once the final volume comes out, which is the next one, I'm going to reread this series from beginning to end because there's a lot going on, especially with volume 8, and it's been a while since I had read this series. But yeah, this was just another quick volume from Oshimi. Can't really talk much about it because anything that I say about this volume will go into spoiler territory, but this is a really good psychological series where a guy wakes up in the body of a girl. And yeah, honestly, it is a really interesting story, and I'm really curious to know how it's gonna end. So yeah, that is Inside Mari volume 8. Alright, so next up we do have Record of Ragnarok volume 1. This is one of the most anticipated manga to come out in the manga community. A lot of people have been reading this, a lot of people have been purchasing this first volume, and this series basically tells the story of this giant tournament between some of the most famous gods in different types of mythologies, such as Greek and Norse and Egyptian, and they are fighting against some of the most famous humans to have ever lived in history. And the way these humans are able to fight gods are they are given these very powerful weapons by these Valkyries, and basically it just goes from there. This first volume was a pretty quick read, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the different matchups that we're gonna have in this series from here on out. The humans are basically fighting to keep humanity going. So yeah, it's a really interesting series, some amazing artwork, and obviously a lot of action in it. So yeah, this is pretty much just a pure battle manga, and I really did enjoy what I read of Record of Ragnarok. So I definitely cannot wait till the next volume of this comes out. The next series that I did start recently was Tenjo Tenge. Now this is a series by Oh Great, as you guys may know for being the mangaka for Air Gear, as well as the Bakemonogatari manga adaptation. And I did read the first 2 omnibuses of this series, and I do have some issues with it. There are some really disturbing and dark things that happen just right off the bat from volume 1 that are honestly quite triggering. So this isn't really a manga that I can recommend to everybody. There are also some things in this manga that I feel like didn't quite age well. But aside from those things, I am actually enjoying this read. I think it is a lot of fun. There's some really great action. When there is humor, I think it really hits, and the artwork is just amazing. I absolutely love this art style. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the story goes from here. The characters are actually really memorable, really enjoyable. I do like the main cast of characters, and this manga doesn't take itself too seriously. It's pretty self-aware because it's basically about a high school where everybody just basically beats each other up. It's kind of like a delinquent slash martial arts manga, and it's just over exaggerated to the extremes. There also is a lot of ecchi in this series as well, so that is something to keep in mind. But like I said, for the most part, I do enjoy this series. There are some setbacks to it for me so far, so I'm really looking forward to just reading the entirety of Tenjo Tenge just so I can have a more solid opinion on it. But yeah, that is the first 2 omnibuses of Tenjo Tenge. All right, and before we get into my manga of the month, I do want to talk about Satoshi Kon's Opus. So this is basically a one-shot manga. It's all in this one volume right here. And this is from Satoshi Kon, who is known to be one of the greatest anime directors, who also directed movies like Paprika and Perfect Blue. I also did recently watch Perfect Blue, and that was just an incredible film. But this manga was also absolutely incredible. This is probably the best single volume manga that I have read, and the story basically follows our main character, who is a mangaka who is struggling with completing his very popular manga series, and when he tries to kill off one of the main characters in his manga series, the character comes to life and starts coming for him. So it's a really insane premise, and it's super meta, and this series was actually never officially completed, and Satoshi Kon passed away, and after he passed away, in his belongings there was a final chapter for this series that is included in this volume. And let me say, it is one of the most meta things that I have ever read. This manga goes places and does things that I honestly have not experienced in any other manga. Honestly, this story is just amazing, and I gave it a 9 out of 10, but I can see with, you know, future rereads, this rising even higher in the ranks of, you know, what I would rate this series. But like I said, this is pretty much a one-shot, so I can't really speak a lot on it without spoiling too many details. So I would just recommend anybody to give this a read. Now, this is a pretty mature series as well, but it is just one of the best written series that I have read so far. So yeah, highly recommend Opus by Satoshi Kon. Alright guys, and we have almost made it to the end of this reading log, but before we get into the end, let's talk about the manga that I think a lot of you guys have been waiting to hear my thoughts on, and that is Goodnight Punpun. Now, this is my manga of the month. I read the entirety of this series in the month of January, and this series is a masterpiece. Yes, this is a 10 out of 10 for me. This is actually the second series that I've given a 10 out of 10 to on this channel, the other being The Flowers of Evil. And man, I just resonated so much with this series by Inio Asano. A lot of you guys probably have heard of Goodnight Punpun because it is one of the more famous manga series and one of the most beloved and highly praised series in the community. So I did have pretty high expectations for this, and somehow this managed to exceed all of my expectations that I had for it. Now, this has quite the reputation for being a very depressing manga, and that certainly is the case. This is also one of the darkest and most messed up manga series that I have ever read. So, you know, don't judge a book by its cover just because we have this little bird ghost creature here in the cover. But yeah, our main character Punpun is presented this way throughout the manga, and his immediate family is all presented as these little birds. All of the other characters are humans. The world is just super detailed and highly realistic, and just Inio Asano's art style is fantastic. I absolutely loved the art in this series. I think it is just mind-blowing at times. Honestly, this is probably the best art for me personally that I have seen in a manga that I've read. But back to, you know, talking about the story, this series hit me in ways that I just did not expect. It really made me reflect a lot on just my life. It brought up things in my past that I haven't thought about in years, and it's just one of those very deeply moving series that honestly, this kind of transcended manga for me. This is just one of the best pieces of media that I've ever consumed, and that's honestly saying something. But I do want to give a warning. Like I said, there are a lot of messed up things that happen in this series. There are a lot of trigger warnings, and it's just such a dark series that you won't come out of this feeling happy. You won't come out of this series feeling satisfied, honestly, but that doesn't stop it from being incredible. So this isn't a series that I can really recommend to a lot of people because of its content. You definitely want to make sure you know what you're getting into when you get into Goodnight Punpun. But yeah, I could talk at lengths about this series and the just everything about it. I mean, I didn't even talk about like the dialogue and just the writing in this story. Man, it's just so mind-blowing. There's so many just details in this story that just blows my mind, and there's a lot of foreshadowing as well, and there's also just a lot of just genius ideas, honestly, from Inio Asano that he put into this manga. You can tell that there was a lot of passion and love put into Goodnight Punpun. So yes, this series is a 10 out of 10. It cemented Inio Asano as one of my favorite mangakas of all time. Now I'm literally trying to collect every series that he's released in English, and I do maybe one day want to do a standalone video on this series, but it's going to take a lot of time and effort to do so. So that's something that, like I said, I do want to do in the future, and maybe I might even need to reread this entire series to do a video on it, because if I do a video on Goodnight Punpun, I wanna do it justice. But yes, that is my manga of the month for the month of January 2022. And with that, guys, that does it for this reading log. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you did, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. Let me know what manga you have read in the month of January down in the comments, and also let me know your thoughts on any of the series that I did talk about. If you do enjoy my content, then make sure to hit that notification bell. That way you can get notified every time I upload a brand new video. Also, make sure to follow me on all of my social media platforms, such as Instagram and Twitter. The links to those are down in the description. And with that, guys, that does it for this reading log. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.